The first set of notes we're going to talk about today is just an introduction to anatomy and physiology. So to start out we're going to talk about the difference between anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is the actual structure of the body parts. So you could take a class in college. It's anatomy, and it's just memorizing all the bones, the muscles, and just the structure. Now physiology is the actual function and how these work. Now, you can have a class of anatomy and just understanding the structures, but physiology has to come after anatomy, because to understand the function of your body parts, you actually have to understand the anatomy. So when we get into the muscular system, you're going to have to understand the anatomy of a muscular tissue so you can understand the physiology of how that's going to contract and how the parts of it work together. Now, so I'm going to start out and we're going to talk about a marathon runner. So, in 2007, Katie went and she ran the London Marathon. It was her 4th and it was very hot. So it says at the station she did take frequent drinks to make sure she stayed hydrated. By the 18th mile, she felt bad, but she was determined to finish. By the end, she needed other runners to help her stay up. And she was admitted to the hospital, and her symptoms were severe diarrhea, a headache, vomiting. She was very confused, and her muscles weren't working correctly. Okay, so the rest of this PowerPoint, we're going to talk about homeostasis. Okay, the point of this is Katie's homeostasis was not, her body was not at, homeostasis. So, homeostasis is the tendency of the body to maintain a stable internal environment, and it has to be balanced. We're going to talk about some prefixes and suffixes later on, but it means sameness because of the homeo. It means your body needs to stay the same. Okay, so your body needs to stay at a 98.6, around there. Okay, some people run a little high, some people run a little low. Okay, your water balance needs to be balanced. You have to keep that balanced. So that's your homeostasis. Now, to explain this a little bit better, you have to know the organization of the body. Okay? Now, I don't want to just go ahead and start with cells, because atoms and molecules are not considered alive. If you remember from biology, the smallest unit considered alive starts with the cell. Okay? Many cells make up your tissues. Okay? We're going to get into the tissues. That's going to be our next chapter. Your tissues are so abundant because it's going to take many different tissues to produce organs, and all those tissues are going to have different functions. Many tissues put together make up organs, like I just said. You put those organs together and you can have organ systems, like the respiratory. We'll talk about the integumentary, which is your skin, your reproductive, just to name a couple. And then put all of your organ systems and you have the complete organism. Okay, continuing on. As far as the basics of human life, there are 7 things that I want you to be familiar with. First, we're going to focus on the organization. Okay, we will talk about cells, how they function, and how those work together to make tissues, and then organs, and so on. Today we're going to talk about metabolism. All humans have metabolism. Now, metabolism is not just your body breaking down food. Metabolism is your body using energy to make all the chemical reactions take place in your body. A lot of people associate it with digestion just because you guys have to intake calories or food to make this energy. Responsiveness, we'll talk about this a little bit with your positive and negative feedback loops. You have a set point, and your body is going to detect changes, and if it goes beyond that set point, and then you have to react to them to keep our body in homeostasis. The next one is movement. You have to be able to change in position and move internal parts. We'll talk definitely more about that in the muscular system, and why not only is it just movement from place to place, but so your blood flow and all that stuff. Growth. And then reproduction. Reproduction is super important. You can't have a species without it being able to pass the new DNA on to individuals. And then the development, we're going to talk about just the cells differentiating and things like that. So that's going to lead us to our next slide. What is cell differentiation? So you see this picture down here. Your life starts as a zygote. It would be just two unspecialized cells. As the cells continue to divide and divide and divide, they begin to start forming into specialized cells, such as the nervous cells, or brain, spinal cord, and things like that. So cell differentiation is when a cell becomes specialized to perform a specific function. All the different cells in your body have different shapes, and they all have different functions because of that. Okay. The way this happens is on your DNA. Cells are going to differentiate because you can activate and deactivate certain genes, and this is going to enable it to take on different jobs, different functions, different shapes. Alright, now sticking with the functions of life, let's go to metabolism. Everything that you guys do, it's going to require energy. And this is because all the chemical changes inside your body are your metabolism, and they have to maintain life. They are going to keep your body at homeostasis, but like I was saying, they are going to require energy. And here in a second, when we come back together as a class, we are going to talk about what that energy is. We talked about it in biology, but what the energy is called inside of your body. All right, moving on. We are going to talk about feedback loops. Your body, once again, definitely all about homeostasis. But a feedback loop is it talks about how the body makes adjustments when the environment changes to help your body maintain homeostasis. So first of all, you have a normal range, and this is where your body can function, or what's going to be an optimal function. So if you think about it, we talked about enzymes in biology. Your body has to be at a certain pH. If not, it's not going to be an optimal pH for that type of enzyme. Then it's not going to function, and then that's when your body can't break things down. That's where you have problems. Your body should be about, like I said, around 98.6 for temperature. You have a set water balance that you need to remain at, and that's why if you drink a lot of water, you have to urinate more often, and it's usually more clear. But if you're more dehydrated, you're not urinating as much, and when you do, it is that dark yellow because you don't want to release the water because your body needs it to create energy. So here's an example of a negative feedback loop. So you need to go ahead and write down that this is a negative feedback loop. You're going to have a negative and a positive. So what happens in a negative feedback loop is that there are sensors, and these would be pretty much as your senses, and they are going to detect conditions such as temperature, and they're going to relay this to the brain. Now, if it is not within your set point, so the set point is a normal range in which your body can function. So in this case, some people, you can function, between the 97, and some people even run up to about a 99. But if it starts to get out of that range, what's going to happen is it relays it up to your brain, and your brain is going to communicate with the effectors. The effectors are going to be muscles or glands that are going to respond to this deviation of the set point. So pretty much it's just like a thermometer in your house. If you have the air conditioner set at 75 and it starts to get warmer in there, it's going to detect that and kick that air conditioner back on. Now with you guys, let's say that you detect that your body temperature is getting too hot. Your glands may your effectors may initiate the sweating to cool you off. Okay. So here's a visual of that. There's some stimulus. Your body senses it. The control would be taking it back up to the brain, and then the effector would be a gland or a muscle. Now on the other end, if you are too cold, it will send it to your brain, and the effector would be your muscles that make you shiver. Now there is a positive feedback loop, but you see it not as often. A positive feedback loop actually amplifies and makes it happen more often. Now a pretty good example of that would be a baby that is nursing. as long as the baby is nursing, it's going to be sending that stimulus to the brain to continue releasing the milk. So that's as long as the baby is nursing. Now when the baby begins to stop, they're going to stop sending that, and then it will begin to decrease. Okay, so that's talking about how your body can maintain homeostasis. So let's talk about Katie that was running that London Marathon. So let's look at her vitals. So when she went in, her respiration was around normal. I mean, it was a little low, but it's 12, which is in the normal range. Her heart rate was 75, which is also in normal range. Pulse ox was 98, which is very close to what you need to be. Now, her sodium levels, which are salt, okay, they were very low. So looking at that, people always say the sodium or salt's not good for your diet, but it is something you have to have, that you need at that equal set point to make sure your body's functioning correctly. So another thing they said is when Katie arrived at the hospital, they began also to collect information. They discovered that she weighed 128 pounds when she went into the hospital. When she checked in the race, she weighed 126. So throughout the race, she gained 2 pounds. So the doctors suggest that she may have the hyponatremia. So we're going to come back together here in a second, and you guys are going to give me some ideas on what that condition is and what she did wrong and what she should have done in that race.